I definitely believe that horses speak to us what they're ready to do and when they're ready to do it. So my training philosophy is always listen to the horse, let the horse speak to you. There's no time limit with horses. I mean, there's no time frame. You got to let the horse develop in their own time. So I think that's the biggest thing is being patient. I think that a lot of my training involves happy horses. You know, I like to think that my care is extremely crucial, and taking care of the horses and letting them have the best vet care and maintenance care and whatever they need, they get. So, you know, and again, letting horses be happy. I think that happy horses are winning horses, and horses that are willing to work have a happy, you know, a home life. And I think that that's a big strategy for me is getting horses feeling as happy and healthy as possible. And again, letting them kind of tell me when they're ready to do things and when they're ready to compete. And if they need more time, they can get more time. There's no rush.
Welcome to the Practical Horseman podcast, featuring conversations with respected riders, industry leaders, and horse care experts. The show is co-hosted by Practical Horseman editors, and our goal is to inform, educate, and inspire. I'm Sandra Olenek, and this week's episode is with top hunter rider Nick Haness. A Southern California native, Nick largely self-funded his dream of competing in the National Equitation Finals. He finished first in the 2006 U.S. Equestrian Federation Show Jumping Talent Search Finals West and fourth in the 2006 ASPCA Maclay National Championship. After more success as a professional rider, Nick started his own training and sales business, Hunterbrook Farms, in 2009. The next several years were filled with multiple top placings in the hunter divisions, including back-to-back wins in the 2012 and 2013 WCHR Handy Hunter Challenge and the championships in the 2016 first-year green divisions at the Devon Horse Show and the Pennsylvania National Horse Show. More recently, Nick and Verdict were the reserve champion at the 2019 USHJA International Hunter Derby Championships. And a month later, he finished first and second on Crowd Pleaser and Reese at the 50,000 Stal Hendrix Green Futurity Finals at the HITS Saugerties Championship. He earned the 2019 USEF Emerson Burr Award and was voted by his peers as the 2019 USEF National Equestrian of the Year. Nick and I spoke over the phone on a day when he personally had shipped 3 vanloads of horses to the Blenheim Fall Series in San Juan Capistrano, California. At the show, his winning ways continued. Among many blue ribbons, he and Fan Club earned the $15,000 CPHA West Coast Green Hunter Incentive Championship. In our conversation, Nick talks about his early catch riding successes, starting his own business at age 21, what he looks for when buying a horse, building trust with horses, furthering his education in the jumper ring, and enjoying the collection of rescue animals, think llamas and parrots, living at his farm with he and his partner Ryan May. You can also read more about Nick in the article Triple Threat and about his training approach in the article Take the Dread Out of the Long Approach, both at www.practicalhorsemanmag.com. Before getting into the episode, I want to thank the sponsor of this week's podcast, Perfect Products. Every trainer has had a horse that is training averse, making it difficult to get through to him and move his schooling along. Perfect Harmony EQ is a liquid top-dress daily formula that can help. Perfect Harmony EQ was designed by the makers of Perfect Prep to allow your horse to leave his stall focused and ready to work. This fast-acting, show-safe feed dressing reliably relaxes stallions, geldings, and mares and can help you bring a more compliant horse to your training program every day. Praised by 10-time Olympian Ian Miller, Perfect Harmony EQ can help you create a more cooperative partner who concentrates on his job. Call 877-324-8002 or visit www.perfectharmony.com. perfectproductseq.com to learn more. Available at retailers nationwide. Now, let's jump right into our conversation with Nick, where he talks about how he was bitten by the riding bug early in his life.
So I was born into a family of lots of boys. I'm one of 5 boys, and fortunately for me, I grew up in a community where horses were nearby. And from a very, very young age, I just always had a fascination with the horses. So my mom used to take me to the equestrian center, and it started just by, feeding horses carrots and treats. And that was when I was 2 or 3 years old. So that was sort of my early on fascination. And then, my brothers all played sports. So of course I also dabbled in sports. I played baseball, I played soccer, basketball, all the sports, you play as a young, kid. So I did all of those, and I just always circled back to wanting to ride horses. So I don't know why me over my brothers, or why I was the one, but I just was born with that in my blood, I guess. So I started riding and having lessons a few days a week, once a week, and then that progressed into 2 times a week. And then I, was still doing other sports and soccer, and I just told my mom that I didn't want to play sports anymore, and I really just wanted to focus on the horseback riding, and that's sort of how I got hooked. And from 5 years old on, I was pretty much just committed to riding, and it was my dream. So I just enjoyed it very much, and it was easy for my mom. She had to take my brothers to one to soccer practice, one to baseball practice, one to the barn. So it all kind of worked out because the barn was close to my house. So I ended up being able to ride my bike to the stables eventually by myself, and that was a great freedom for me and a lot of fun.
And you've said before that before you could ever compete at the HITS Indio circuit, which is now known as the Desert Circuit in Thermal, California, mm-hmm. You went there specifically to spectate. How did that come about, and how did that experience influence you?
I used to watch the OLN network, which used to have a lot of equestrian competitions on the TV. So I actually used to see and watch Grand Prix from the TV network, and one of those was out in Indio, California, and it wasn't too far from where I lived. It's a couple hours, and I'd always had friends, at school or at the barn that would talk about Indio and how it was like the big fancy show in California, and everyone goes to Indio. So I sort of had heard about this horse show, and then I finally had the opportunity to go out there one weekend through a family friend who rode in Southern California, and she was competing in the jumper. So she invited my mom and I to come out there and watch her compete. And while I was there, I just was starstruck. I mean, left and right, I'd seen all these people, Hap Hansen, Peter Pletcher, John French, Richard Spooner, people that I had seen on the TV, and they were all competing there, and they were, just their normal daily horse activities, riding around on their dirt bikes and, polishing their boots and getting on their horses. And that was just like an eye opener, and it was amazing just to be there. So I used to drive out there when I was old enough. Now at this stage, I've been able to compete out there, but I would drive out there. I'd get out of school early on a Thursday and drive out there and watch the tail end of the professional hunter divisions going, and be able to watch some of my idols and how they competed and how they prepared their horses. And I'd watch the jumper ring as well. So before I was really able to, full throttle be involved in the competition side of it myself, I was just out there soaking it all in and watching and kind of sitting on the sidelines and just taking notes mentally and watching and learning a lot. That's how I learned a lot from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. And early on, you said you began dreaming of competing in the National Equitation Championships, but your family couldn't afford maybe the caliber of horses or the show schedule that was required for you to do that. Can you walk us through how you were able to make that happen?
Yes, I mean, absolutely. I mean, it's a long story short. I mean, I wasn't able to compete at the caliber and to have the string of horses that it took to be, competing and being competitive at the top level. However, I was able to pick up catch rides, and I was, a good enough rider that I could luckily catch ride for other professionals and ride nice horses, for other people, which mostly was in the pony hunter ring in the beginning, and then in the junior hunter rings as I got older. And I had always dreamed of doing the clay finals and all of those, national equitation finals. I loved the equitation. I always, was a perfectionist and wanted to, better myself and have all of the right posture and technique and strategy to win. And that was always something I really wanted to do. When I was like 15, my parents had bought me this amazing, junior hunter that was sort of a friend deal from a neighbor, a girl that was going to college, and we bought the horse, family discount basically. And I competed that horse once or twice, and he got sold. And I made a little bit of a profit on that, which was really exciting. And my mom sort of gave me the choice. You can keep the horse and show it, or you can sell him and you can keep the money and you can maybe buy yourself an equitation horse and go to more horse shows. So that was sort of that was the route I went. I sold the horse and I kept the extra money to buy my next equitation horse, which I leased, and started kind of at a young age buying and selling some horses from Europe to buy and sell as investments, to put extra money in my piggy bank to show so I could compete more. So that's sort of how I started being able to compete in equitation. And then a nice old retired Grand Prix horse stepped into my life, and he was stepping down from the bigger jumper classes and wanted to maybe just do the equitation. So he didn't have the best vet check, so I was able to buy him again for a pretty low price, and he was amazing. We were a great partnership, and the horse and I think he was the horse that put me on the map, so to speak, for the equitation. And that was when I started to compete, more competitively and successfully in the California equitation classes. And right about that point in my career, many people don't really know, I actually was involved in a TV show called LA Riding Club, which never aired in America. But through the TV show, I was able to pick up a sponsorship with Ulcergard, and they basically funded my East Coast show circuit. So I was able to go to Harrisburg for the first time and go to Capital Challenge for the first time and see all of the East Coast finals and compete back there, which was really exciting. So that was how I had my introduction.
Mm-hmm. And you were young when you started. I think you had said you'd gone to Europe with your brother to buy your first investment horse. How did you handle it being so young? It seems very mature.
Yeah. I laugh at it now. I mean, I think it's funny. I look back and think, how did I ever go to Europe as a 15-year-old with my older brother who knows nothing about horses as my agent, basically, or my financial advisor? So I laugh about that. It's pretty funny. I don't know if I got lucky or if it was just, in my intuition and in my blood to just have an eye for picking horses. I don't know. I can't really say, but I luckily went over there and had some success, and I bought my first horse over there, and he ended up turning into being a pretty well acclaimed hunter in America, and got sold, had a big career afterwards, and it sort of put me on the giving me the ability to to show and compete more. So that was pretty fun and exciting. And it's funny looking back at a glance, because now it's such a big part of my life and my career, and my daily function at my barn is importing horses from Europe. So I think it's something I've always enjoyed doing from a young age, and always been something I've loved to do it, and it's been a lot of fun for me and a lot of success. So that's been an exciting part. But going to Europe as a teenager by myself and picking out my first horse, again, it's sort of almost ironic and kind of funny, but I loved it.
Mm-hmm. And you said that your mom had ultimately left that decision to you about the horse that you bought and that you then could sell for a profit. I guess, how did she know you were going to be able to handle it?
My mom, I think, always had a lot of confidence in me and knew that this was my passion. And I think that she, took a gamble and a risk on her, on her own part, putting that much, financial ability and pressure on a person of my age at that point. But I was always pretty mature for my age, and devoted. I was a good student in school. I did my homework, but she always knew that my whole dream in my life was to become a professional and to do this, in a bigger way. So I think that she giving me that opportunity was a game changer. Absolutely. But I'm forever grateful that was an opportunity for me that she gave to me. I can't even thank her enough, because I think had that not happened, and that would have been, my life would be completely different today than what it is. So I do definitely attribute that my success is directly, contribution to my mom's, generosity and ability to give me that choice at that age, because it really opened up a lot of window and a lot of opportunity for me to further my career at that point of my life. And I'm obviously forever grateful for that.
And you mentioned that you had, backing up a little bit, that you had begun catch riding very early, even ponies. How did that come about? How did people become confident enough?
So I had been riding with my trainer at my facility in Coto de Casa. It's my hometown where I was born and raised and where I started riding. And another trainer, it was a public facility, so there was another trainer that was there. She happened to be walking by my arena one day. She was going to another barn and saw me riding, and I was this little boy on a big, tall horse. And she had a green pony that was, purchased by a pretty good client of theirs. And she asked point blank, she came up to my trainer and asked if I'd be willing to catch ride her pony for her and go to Indio. So of course I was like thrilled. And luckily I was still at the age where I could ride a small pony. I was riding as I think a 12-year-old at that point. So I was able to ride, and that's sort of how I started catch riding and doing the ponies. And that was a great relationship and took me through the next few years of my riding career doing ponies and being able to show and catch ride. And obviously when I'm catch riding, it's on someone else's, dollars. So it didn't cost my family other than the traveling expenses to get there, but the horse show was paid for. So that was a great way for me to get showing and get out there and get doing it. So that's how that all sort of began. And that pony that I first started on was Buffalo Soldier, and he ended up having a very long and famous career. So that was a fun story.
You won the USEF Show Jumping Talent Search Finals West in 2006. What did that mean to you?
That was, I think any junior rider, it's winning the Talent Search Finals. It's the biggest medal final. It's one of the most challenging medal finals. There's a lot of phases to it. It's very prestigious in our sport. So for me, that was an incredible and just an amazing experience and memory. And to win that, really, it never gets old. It's just something it's just exciting. It's fun. And I remember at the time when I was 17 years old, and to win that final was like winning for me the Olympics for me. So that was a really amazing experience. And to see the list of riders ahead of me that were on the board of being past winners was encouraging and very exciting to see who a lot of people I knew on that list had gone on to be very successful professionals and Grand Prix riders. So you kind of feel important to be in that league.
What did you do after you aged out of the junior divisions? Can you walk us through that?
I immediately, at my last junior year, I was catch riding junior hunters, and the trainer that I was riding for, John Bragg, offered me a position, and I took the job. So right out of my junior career, I started being a professional, and we opened a satellite barn. I'm from Southern California. John at the time was from Northern California. And so we kind of decided we would open up a branch down here and open a barn and see where it went. So that was where my first steps were as professional. And it was a lot. I had a lot of responsibility. I had a lot of horses to show. It was a great job. It was fun to open a barn with someone that had experience like he did in our industry, and develop a barn. And within, I think, a short amount of time, we had a 30 horse full barn of clients and new horses in training down here. So that was a lot of fun. And I worked for that job for about 2 years. And then I took a little bit of a break from the horse world after that job. And it was the first time in my life I could really settle down and think to myself what I wanted to do in the long run. I'd been a very successful junior at that point. I had a lot of wins, a lot of opportunities, a lot of great experiences. I obviously skipped college and I went right into being a professional, which is very demanding. And I think a lot of young professionals don't understand, or they're not ready for what it takes to be a professional and all that goes with that. So that was an eye-opening experience for me for sure. So it just, I think when I was 20 years old, I decided to take a break from the horses and reconsider, where I wanted to go with my life. Should I go to school? Should I get a job outside the horses? I never had experimented outside of the horse industry. So it was a really good year for me to reflect and to understand kind of who I was and what I wanted to become and who I wanted to be. So it was a great year, and I did a lot of traveling that year, and it was a great time to just think about where my future was going. And it didn't take very long for me to realize and to understand that how much the horses were obviously my priority and my dream in every part of my life. So without horses in my life, I felt like I was nobody. So it was very clear to me that I wanted to be a professional again, and that's when I established and opened my own barn, Hunterbrook Farms, in 2009. And so it's been 11 years.
When you go to Europe, what do you look for when you're trying a horse to buy?
So it's, for me, I've always said it, I really feel like horses, it's such a connection between horses and riders. And for me, there's a certain connection I think that I feel with a horse, and I kind of have a good feeling about if they're going to work out or not. And that's a really important part of picking a horse. For me, it's not just based on looks or talent. I mean, there's just a general, for me, like a connection, and I look into a horse's eyes and I get a sense of, their personality, and I like to see them, in the barn. I like to see them interact, around other horses, and I like to ride them and test drive them per se. But there's been many times where, a horse looks not that promising in Europe, and I just believed in it and gave the horse time here, and they ended up being some of my most famous horses.
After you buy a horse, what's your approach to training them? Or maybe can you talk a little bit about your training philosophy?
I definitely believe that horses speak to us and what they're ready to do and when they're ready to do it. So my training philosophy is always listen to the horse, let the horse speak to you. There's no time limit with horses. I mean, there's no time frame. You got to let the horse develop in their own time. So I think that's the biggest thing, is being patient. I think that a lot of my training involves happy horses. I like to think that my care is extremely crucial, and taking care of the horses and letting them have the best vet care and maintenance care, and whatever they need, they get. So, and again, letting horses be happy. I think that happy horses are winning horses, and horses that are willing to work have a happy, a home life. And I think that that's a big strategy for me, is getting horses feeling as happy and healthy as possible. And again, letting them kind of tell me when they're ready to do things and when they're ready to compete. And if they need more time, they can get more time. There's no rush. So I think that that's a big and important strategy, and part of my techniques at home is, letting horses just relax. They get to go in the turnout. They get to eat lots of hay. They get to go on trail. They get soft bits in their mouth. And then they come around when they're ready to, and they blossom and they shine when it's time. And that's always been like my philosophy. I mean, I like to be on the horse's good side, and I like to know my horses, and that's one of the things I love about owning the farm, is that they're in my backyard. I can walk out of my back gates of my house and be right there at the barn within 3 minutes. And I check on them at night, and I listen to them, and I look at them, and I see kind of how they're feeling and what their thoughts are. And you can almost hear their thoughts out loud just by looking at a horse's expression. So that's the best part for me.
And similar to that, you've said that building trust with young horses is one of your favorite jobs. I guess, why is that, and how, you've maybe answered this a little bit, but how do you go about doing that?
I think that young horses in particular take extra time. They're definitely, when you're working with a young horse, there's no book to read, I think, that explains how to perfectly train a young horse. Everyone's different. And I think for me, in my experience, I think because I grew up, with not having to be able to buy experienced further along horses in their career, I always said that you start off with young horses or inexperienced horses. It's really just getting a horse to trust you. And if you can have the trust of a horse and they believe in you, then you can really accomplish so much. And then, one thing that people always say about me is that horses believe you. I never really understood what they meant by that. What do you mean they believe me? But I think that what they meant by that is that they trust me, and they believe that whatever I tell them they can do, they can do it. And that's a huge and beautiful thing.
So you've had a lot of successes in the hunter ring, but you've also had some success in the jumper ring too. Can you talk about that and how you're able to make that transition back and forth?
I love the jumper ring. It's super exciting for me. I love to gallop. Even on my hunters, I like to gallop. So when you get in the jumper ring and you can really gallop, it's just the feeling that you can't even explain. It's just like you're flying and the wind is hitting your face and your horse is galloping and jumping. It's exhilarating and so much fun. And I love the thrills of that completely. So I've been fortunate enough to own a few Grand Prix horses and have some jumpers. Unfortunately for me, whenever I have a nice jumper and I do a Grand Prix or I get in that ring, the other side of the sales world, the jumper people, they think that here comes this hunter guy in the jumper ring and he's winning a Grand Prix, so we must buy that horse because he doesn't know what he's doing. So I've never been able to keep one of my jumpers for very long, which is my goal. My long-term goal is to get a Grand Prix horse and be able to keep it, and that's my next chapter in my life, hopefully to further my education in the jumper ring and be able to have a string of jumpers and which I'm sort of starting to have right now. It's slowly coming together, but that's my goal.
Okay, so you've successfully catch ridden a lot of horses right from the beginning of your riding career. How do you get on a horse and evaluate it so quickly and just know how to ride it so well?
Catch riding for me is like second nature. I mean, again, you get on a new horse, you don't know how they turn or how they go or what they do. And I think for me, I've been able to be selective of who I catch right now and trainers that I work with, because I do best personally when I get on a new horse and just figure them out. It's hard for me to get on a horse and catch ride when the trainer is, telling me how to do it and what the horse needs and all this stuff. I benefit and I thrive most just, again, closing my eyes, riding the horse, feeling the rhythm, and just learning the horse's ins and outs naturally without having too much instruction. And I feel like that the horse, again, can adapt to how I ride, and get to know me as well. So getting on a new horse for the first time, it's always nerve-wracking. I mean, that's normal, I think, for anyone to experience, getting on a new horse. I like to know a little bit of information, like, are they afraid of traffic? Do they stop? Or, what are the goals we're trying to accomplish for today's ride? Is it to win the class, or is it to school the horse for the ride for the amateur or the junior that's going to ride it on the weekend? Knowing those things is a really that's helpful to know. But basically, getting on a new horse for the first time, again, it's just like getting on a bike for the first. You got to adjust the seat a little bit. You got to figure out where the handlebars go. You're just going to figure out all of the parts of that horse and figure out where they are comfortable and where the horse likes how they like to be told to go forward or slow down. So getting to know a horse like that is it's very fun for me, and it's more than anything, it's like accepting a new challenge, and it's kind of an interesting process to get to know a horse. So that's how I enjoy and why I enjoy catch riding.
So, as you've indicated, training horses is an individual thing with each horse, but do you have a favorite exercise with horses, or a go-to exercise?
I don't necessarily have a favorite exercise or a go-to exercise. I mean, I think a lot of people would say on behalf of me that I like to ride with long reins, which is true. I do like to ride with long reins. And I don't know if that's just the way I ride, or if that's kind of how I feel like that's how I let a horse get to know me, and I leave them alone a little bit. I have a long rein. I leave their mouth alone. I kind of let the horse, naturally find their balance, and then figure out from there, how I should ride that horse. Of course, certain horses need more connection. Some horses like no connection. So I think that when I first get on a new horse, I first start off with basics. I just sort of let the horse go. And that's like riding, like they have no rider on their back, just basically letting them kind of go free and figure out. And then from there, I kind of can dissect what works and what doesn't work, and then kind of pick up the slack and pick up the reins, and then make a new plan. So for me, my go-to, I guess my exercise that I do as a rider is I get on a new horse and I kind of just let them kind of go and just sort of let them figure it out, and then we kind of work together.
Moving on to competing and riding, you placed second at the 2019 USHJA International Derby Finals on Verdict. Can you share how that happened and what that was like?
It was incredible. Derby finals in Kentucky was, I mean, just an amazing experience. The event itself is just so highly broadcasted, and the everything, the audience, the stands, the stadium there, the setup, the prep, everything about it is just incredible just to be there. But to be on course, again, on a horse that you can trust and a horse that trusts you at a venue like that is just so magical, because the jumps are huge, they're decorated, they're wide, they're tall, they're challenging. It's a great, for me, it's like everything you work hard for during the year at horse shows is just beautifully, I guess, painted at that horse show. As far as, it just makes for a great venue, and a day to compete with horses like that. It's just amazing. So I was fortunate enough to have this horse that I rode Verdict last year at the Derby finals, and it was a horse that I was catch riding throughout that year a few different times, and he is an incredible horse, a brave horse, a really fun horse. But again, it was a horse that I kind of had to get to know before the finals, and I got to spend a week with him in Kentucky before the Derby finals, and turn him out in a big grass field and just watch him all day long, and just get to know him, and get on him bareback and ride him, and just for us to have this relationship, this bond, before we went to that big event and did that Derby finals. And I completely attribute my success to having that time with him, to get to know him, and him get to know me. And it was like a bond, and it was just an amazing experience. And when we got there, I had no expectations of doing well. I mean, I really just wanted to get around and just do it. And for us, after the first round, we scored really nice scores, and we were in second place to Tori Colvin. It really pumped me up. I was super excited.
Very nice. And then also in 2019, you received the U.S. Equestrian Federation's Emerson Burr Award, which is presented to a hunter rider. And you were also voted by your peers as the 2019 USEF National Equestrian of the Year. What did those accomplishments mean to you?
Being awarded the Emerson Burr Award and being voted for Equestrian of the Year, really, there are no words to describe how proud that makes me, and how validated that makes me in my life. Those are, I think, something that as a rider and professional, I would dream that would happen to me at some point in my career. To happen to me at 32 years old was just extremely mind-blowing to me, and I was flattered and humbled, and just more than anything, just excited and proud that I was selected for that award and that I was voted to win, because for me, there's no bigger accomplishment than that, having the respect of your peers, and being awarded that prestigious award and being recognized for a lifetime of work was just incredibly exciting and rewarding and powerful to me, and something that I do every day cherish and wake up and just brings a smile to my face. I mean, it's amazing, and it's something that I've worked hard. I mean, I work hard, and as many people do, everyone works hard, but it's just something that I have wanted my whole life, and the horse world is my whole world. So to be accepted for that award it was incredible.
Talking about competitions in general, do you have a routine before a competition?
I mean, before we get to competitions, I mean, I think first and foremost, again, I go back to happy horses or successful horses. So, I mean, before we go to a horse show, I let my horses turn out extra and stay out and just have sort of downtime and resting time before we go to competition. So that's how I prepare the horses. I mean, for myself, I love competing. It's pretty second nature to me now. So I don't really have any rituals for myself. I mean, I thrive on adrenaline. So I think that right before I start my first competitions, when it hits me and kind of excites me and gives me that little thrill that I'm showing again, that's sort of how I think it pushes me to do well and compete better.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever get nervous before a competition?
I don't usually get nervous before competitions, unless it's for a major competition like Derby finals. Yes, I was very nervous. So in those situations, when I get that kind of butterflies in my stomach feeling before competition, it's usually a good sign for me. It means I'm nervous, but I'm focused and I'm ready. and that usually propels me to be better and ride better. So it's almost like a good thing when I get that feeling. But I like to be by myself. So when that happens, I like to prepare by finding a seat in the stands or somewhere around the course where I can just sit down by myself and focus and watch. I love watching. So, from the time when I was a young boy, I've always learned by watching. And so watching my competitors show first, or seeing how they ride a bending line, or seeing where the turn is for the handy, those are all things that I like to do for myself to mentally prepare for my round or for my competition for that day. So in Kentucky, before the final round at night, I was very nervous. I really wanted to do well. It's not a fear of falling off or messing up or being necessarily. It's more of like a fear. It's more of like a nervousness to do well and win. I really am very competitive, obviously, with myself. So I really wanted to give myself the best opportunity and chance to do well. And I like to be creative. I think that handy courses are super fun. I've been given the nickname Handy Haness in my past because I like to do handy classes. And in a big venue like Derby Finals, there was a lot of different options to jump, different places to turn, tracks to take, things like that. So I like to sit around the course, move positions a few times. I'll sit at one end of the ring for a few minutes, and I'll move to another end of the ring, and just look at the ring from a different perspective and a different view to really understand and calculate my plan and strategy to win the class.
So you've won a lot, but not winning is also part of competing in horses. And I guess, how do you handle it when things don't go your way?
Absolutely correct. It's great to win, but more times than not, we don't win. And there are plenty of those times at horse shows where, things didn't go your way. You made a mistake as a rider, or you miscalculated, or your horse got green, or your horse made a mistake, or you had a great round and the judge didn't like you. There's all these, different situations that arise at a horse show. At the end of the day, it's frustrating, when you don't win. But for me, I'm happy if my horses are developing in the right direction, that my horses were well behaved, they put in their all of their effort, then I'm happy. So, you can only do your best every day. Everyone's out there trying their best. So you have to realize that it can't work out every single time in your favor, and things happen, and that's part of being a human. And I have plenty of funny stories and experiences where things went wrong, or I made a mistake, or something just didn't happen right, and those days make us humble, and they bring us back to remembering that we're working with live animals that are not machines or robots, and that's the best part of our sport, and why I think it makes people keep coming back. There's so many challenges and things that make this interaction and this relationship with horses that much more interesting. So I think that for everybody, and for myself especially, at the end of the day, after a long day of showing and competing, when you go to your horse's stall and they come back out, want a cookie, and they love you all over again, it makes it all that much more worth it. So it's a fun process. It's a humbling process, but it's a great process.
And how you mentioned that we were actually just driving to a horse show, but how has the COVID pandemic affected how you do things, and perhaps is still affecting you and your business? And
definitely, I try to find the positive in situations, and I feel like as horrible and difficult and challenging as this year has been with COVID, there's been a lot of underlying highlights and positive things that came from it. So for me, when initial quarantine started earlier this year, I was very, very fortunate and lucky to own my own farm and have my horses in my backyard. So that made it very possible and easy for me, while quarantining at home, to still be involved with my horses, which I know many people and clients and riders were not able to do because of facilities being shut down or on lockdown, or all the strict protocols that have gone with that. So for me, the silver lining in all of this year has been able to stay at home and not horse show for those few months gave me a better insight to my horses and where they were at in their careers, and where they were at on an emotional and physical level, and just sort of being able to reset that button and start over and just relax and focus on the basics again, and going on trail rides again, and just letting the horses be horses and turning out. That was a great and fun for me, an opportunity to spend that time at home, because so much of my life and career is on the road and going to horse shows every single week. And that's hard on horses, and so being able to stay home and give them the chance to kind of rest and rebuild has been great. And since that time, we've been able to come back to the horse shows and compete again. And I think all my horses felt, rested, and they felt like they were able to come in, and they've been competing ever since amazingly. And we've had a very successful year after quarantine, which has been very fortunate. It's difficult on many levels for owners, for our sport, for our industry, for people that, want to come support the horse shows because of the protocols being so strict now. That's been a difficult thing, but I think being able to show, the horses like to show. My horses like to compete. They enjoy it. So it's been really nice to be able to go back to horse shows again. And even though it's strict, we got to wear masks and we got to follow all these protocols. I think that my horses are happy to be competing again and showing off their skills. And for me, sales obviously is a big part of my professional career, and buying and selling. And that was a worry for me this year with Corona and the market, and the fear of the future. So I'm taking it one step at a time. I've always been a very patient owner and salesperson. I don't like to make people buy my horse. I don't like to force people or jam it down people's throats. If they want to buy my horse, they're welcome to. If they don't, they don't. And that's always been my approach. And I also have people approach me a lot of times for horses, and I don't think that horse is going to work for them, so I just flat out say no. So matching horses with these people is something I really take pride in doing, and creating a hopeful partnership that will work in the future. So sales have been pretty good as well for us this year.
I understand that you have more than just horses at your stable, that you have goats, alpacas, pigs, miniature ponies, and parrots. Can you talk a little bit about how that happened?
I think that circulates back to my childhood, being one of 5 boys in a big family. I always dreamed of having, lots of pets and animals. I'm an animal lover. I love animals. Obviously love horses, and but that goes with pretty much all animals. So I always dreamed of and wanted to have, like a little petting zoo at my house. Of course, was never granted that when I was a kid. So I think when I grew up and I had my own farm and I was able to have the land and the space for it, I started kind of collecting one animal here and there, and it's sort of now expanded a bit, and I've been able to rescue some animals, which has been very rewarding and very fun. So a large portion of my animals have been rescued that live at my farm now, sort of part of my petting zoo, and I've also bought a few of them and bred a few of them. So it's a little bit of mixture of all three. But for me, the animals just bring a little bit of happiness and joy to my life when I'm away from horse shows and dealing with the hustle and bustle of horse shows and clients and back gate people and the horse show management staff and all the things that go into my daily life. When I go home and I'm just by myself or with my dog or with my partner Ryan at the farm, it's just peaceful and rewarding for me just to hang out and sit down in the pasture with all my animals and admire them and love them and spoil them. It's something that just brings me peace and makes me just have happiness.
Do you have any interests besides riding?
Riding is my main love and my focus and my passion in life, of course. But being outdoors for me is I always love. I love to go to the lake and jet ski or water ski. I just love being on the outdoors. So traveling is a big part of my life too. When I'm not showing, I sort of force myself to take vacations here and there and go explore the world and see other places. Of course, I have my staff at home FaceTime me with my horses and my farm every day. So I can't always get away from the farm mentally. I love to know what they're all doing. So it's hard for me to get away for too long, but I like to take, a week or two vacation every year and travel. So traveling is definitely something I enjoy doing. And I have a bucket list of destinations and things I like to go see and do. So I've been working on that the past few years. One of them was actually doing a safari in Africa and staying at the Giraffe Manor for one night and having breakfast with giraffes in my hotel was pretty amazing and one of my
Wow.
bucket list items I always wanted to do. But yeah, just being outdoors and being around animals is pretty much what I love the most.
That's cool. And last question, I guess, why do you think you've been so successful?
I think that following my heart has led me to being successful. Staying true to myself and to what my goals and my passions are, and just being honest and being humble and focusing on having good morals and integrity and having good relationships with people. And I'm pretty close to my family still, and being able to have my family life, on the side of my professional career is something that's really important to me. And remembering that this is all, I think this is all a blessing, and I'm very fortunate to have this as my life. I look at myself and think, I could be sitting in an office job, working in a corporate place, and for me, that would just not work for me. So I'm just thankful every single day that horses, and this is my life, and my job is, right now it's Monday, it's trainer's day off, but I'm driving my 3 different trips of horses to the Oaks, to the horse show. But I love doing it. I love having my dog in the front seat next to me as my companion, and the horses in the back, which just sort of always been my go-to. So I just feel like that hard work and dedication, I think, is what has led me to be successful.
Mm-hmm. And actually, one more question: how do you just, because you talked about having a balance, with your partner and your home life, how do you achieve that balance with such a busy schedule?
It's very brief and short. When I'm home, I'm not home for very long usually in a typical show year. But when I'm home, that 2 days I get to spend at the farm watching my zebra trot across the farm and seeing my baby alpacas born, and milking our goats, giving our and bottle feeding our goats. That for me is my balance. That makes that cures me and whatever I'm going through. It sort of just helps make things better for me. And it's not much time at home, and I obviously would love to have more time at home sometimes, but that balance, if I'm home for too long, then I get stir crazy and want to go back to the horse show. So it never gets old for me. And I enjoy the whole process. I enjoy building these relationships with horses, getting to know horses inside and out, and being a part of their journey, their diets, I feed my horses myself in the afternoon, their grains and their supplements, and I just really, being involved with them hands-on for me is something I just completely love doing. And so I think that's what makes me happy and keeps me balanced. And of course, having a great partner like Ryan is another aspect of my life that's been amazing, and I'm thankful for. So pretty lucky.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate your chatting with me.
Of course, I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode with Nick Haness, and a big thank you to the sponsor of this week's episode, Perfect Products, the makers of Perfect Prep. Learn more at www.perfectproductseq.com. Join us again for upcoming episodes with award-winning journalist Nancy Jaffer about the book Riding for the Team, and Grand Prix show jumper Mavis Spencer. You can subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. While you're there, please rate and review the show. I'm Sandra Olenek, and you've been listening to the Practical Horseman Podcast.